All right, welcome everybody. We are so excited just to share everything that we learned at 10X with you guys this past weekend. It was absolutely such an amazing conference. You guys know that I've been in Grant Cardone's mentorship program. You guys know that team-wide, we've talked about his books for the past, I don't even know, probably 15 months. The 10X rule, if you have not read it, will absolutely change your business. He also has one called Be Obsessed or Be Average. It was the first book I read in 2019, you guys. So I started 2019, read Be Obsessed or Be Average, and then I just kept going, as hard as I could on self-development from there. I think I read this book in July. So good. I absolutely love just how relentless Grant Cardone is. And guys, it shows. You're gonna see a common theme, amongst everything that Leah and I share that we learned at the conference this past weekend from some of the most successful people in the world, both men and women. I wanted you guys to let this soak in. Every single person we heard from this weekend was at least a 9-figure earner. Just in case anyone's wondering what that means they make minimum $100 million or more a year. That's what a 9-figure earner is. 7-figure is millions, 8-figure is 10 million or more, 9-figure is at least 100 million. Most of them were upwards towards $1 billion. There was a couple billionaires in the room. So I hope you guys have your notebooks out and are ready. You guys, what was so amazing about learning from all these different people was there wasn't that much different pieces of advice they were giving. Some of them had different things they highlighted. But overall, one thing Leah and I were talking about when we ended yesterday and we were going and, walking, get something to eat, is we were it's really crazy to hear how they all basically at the end of the day were self-made. They all took nothing and turned it into something incredible. And so we're so excited just to share everything with you guys tonight. One thing I wanted to jump in just right away to getting started before I pass it over to Leah to let her share some of her favorite takeaways was when the conference started on Thursday. One of the things they started off with right away was Grant Cardone was talking about how the better you get, the more help you need. He said it's not the other way around. It's not like the person way down here needs the most help. He says actually the more you grow, the better you get, the bigger your business grows, the bigger team you have, the more customers you sign, you name it. The better you get, the more help you need. And he says what's so important to remember is that help is services and resources. It's not sympathy, empathy, understanding. It's not somebody coddling you and making you feel better when times are tough, when your day's hard. Yes, sometimes we need a friend, but he was saying when we get better, we need we need more resources. We need someone to point us in the right direction. When I heard that, I immediately thought of both Jordan and Amanda. They both the past week or two have both reached out to me on separate occasions. If there's someone on their team struggling and they want a book recommendation, but they don't know what book specifically to recommend, they're like, hey, I'm stuck. What would you recommend? The better we get, we're always going to need to pull resources from other people. Someone that maybe has read a little bit more than us, someone that maybe has, been to something we haven't been to. And that is true at every single stage in your business. At this point in the business, you guys, I can't tell you how much, if I get an opportunity to be around Pam, I'm writing down everything she says because I'm I need, I've read a lot, I've done a lot, but there comes a point where I can't do it all on my own. I can't just sit there and get every book from the library. I need to know what is the best thing for me at this point in my journey. And being around someone like Pam, she always just speaks such wisdom and has just the perfect things to recommend that I need right now. And so I hope you guys can really let your wheels turn on that. As you're growing, make sure you're surrounding yourself with people who can call you higher, who can give you those resources, who can help you become even better, because it's only harder the further you go. I know it's really easy to, think if you're at a point in your business where you're, grinding and you're oh man, this is just so tough right now. It'd be so much easier once I'm diamond. I promise you the diamonds have a whole new set of struggles. They'll all attest to that. At this point, being ambassador diamond, there's, with every level comes new devils, but we just have to get better at reaching for help and, making sure we're being pointed in the right direction so we can keep growing and we can stand stronger against the attacks that come against us. So I just love that so much. And I love just so much, again, that he hit on, we think sometimes we need someone to sympathize with us when we're struggling, but that's not what we need. We need a resource. And so I just thought that was so good. Yeah, before I keep going, I'm gonna pass it over to Leah because I'll just keep rambling otherwise. Leah, what were some of your favorite takeaways?
There's a lot, but to keep this within reason. So they had 13 different speakers over the course of the 3 days, and all of them, like Brittany said, are self-made millionaires. And it was pretty phenomenal to be in a room listening to all of these people who come from all different walks of life. And some of them struggled with drug addiction. Some of them struggled, growing up in poverty. A lot of them, basically came from nothing and are now some of the most successful people in the world. And so for me, it's a good reminder that, like, no matter where you come from, no matter where no matter what you went through, no matter what your current circumstances are nowadays, like, we can all be successful. There's no, there's no discrimination or anything against, your past and stuff. And so it's up to us if we want it, to make it happen. And one of the things, one of the speakers, talked about success, and which is something that you hear a lot of the top leaders say, is that success doesn't come from what you do occasionally, but what you do consistently. And that's somebody who's making, 100 million or plus more than that. But these are the same people that, whether it's an ambassador diamond or it's a millionaire, saying the same things that we are hearing. Nothing's changing. That success comes from what we do, not what we do occasionally, but what we do consistently. And so for me, that one, just like, not that I didn't believe that then, but that was just like that much more confirmation that it's all about consistency. No matter what we go through, it's like the minimum, whether you do 3 posts or 6 posts, you have your minimum step posts that you do every single day, and you do it consistently, no matter what. And on your really good days, you might get 6 posts in, but no matter what, no matter how bad or how busy your worst day is, you still get a minimum of 3 posts in. And so that's one of the things that really stuck out at me. Marie Forleo, she was one of a couple of the women speakers that we got to hear. And it was just really empowering to listen to her speak. And, a lot of the speakers were men. And so to get to hear a woman, start from nothing and basically be self-made, it was really inspiring. And I mean, it was inspiring just to be around all of them and listen to them and everybody speaking and, sharing how they got started. I mean, some of these people started, I don't know, what was it like? They were getting like $1 million deals at the age of 25 or something like that, and 32. And I mean, it's just, if you want it and you push for it and you are willing to do the work, like, we can all do this. And so that was kind of one of the biggest things I think that I took away, is that really just no matter what, we can be successful. I can be successful. And that, I think that is what I need to hear, because like Brittany just said, like, becoming a diamond, there is a whole new set of just everything. There's that whole new push, and it doesn't get easier once you go to diamond. And there's that next big jump where it's like, okay, now I pushed this hard to get to diamond. Now I need to push this much harder to get to double diamond. And I know that I can do it by being consistent, and rather than just talking about wanting it, but actually doing the footwork around it. And that was one of the other things is that somebody said, I think it was, I'm trying to look at my notes. I can't remember who it was, but somebody said though that, so many people talk about wanting to be successful and wanting to be a millionaire, but then they're not actually ready to, or they're not willing to do the footwork to get there. And so for me, this was like a really good, just inspirational weekend to get me motivated again, and, get ready to like jump back in and like really just push with like a whole new motivation and a whole new just fire under my butt after listening to these people. Because now, like, I really know, and I can see that, like, I can do it, we can do it together. And that was another thing Elena Cardone talked about is, find somebody you trust, find your tribe, find your team. And that's that's another thing that hit for me is like, we have our team, we have a really strong team, we have really strong leaders that we all get to run together with. And together, we all have our own businesses, but together we run, and we all run to the top together. So I don't know, I feel like I could like run through all of my notes and talk about everything, because everything was just so good. But those were some of the top things that stuck out for me that really just hit home and really hit me right in the heart. And it was like, okay, that's like right where I'm at in my personal life and business life today. So
I love that so much. And like tacking on to what Leah was saying about like so many of them like coming from nothing. One, I don't remember who said it, but someone said at the beginning, it was like the first day, they said, just because you grew up poor doesn't mean you have to have poor dreams. So like you could be in the business right now having nothing. I know some of you guys, I'm not going to call anybody out, but I know there were several of you that it took everything you had to get to conference. You literally came to conference practically with the clothes on your back. And that was such a powerful statement, hearing that just because you grew up poor doesn't mean you have to have poor dreams. You have the same opportunity anyone else has, if in some ways more. I'm going to tell you, some of the people that I am inspired the most by and that I have seen do the most are the people that had the hardest path leading up to it. And so I just hope that wherever you're at right now, you can really like let that soak in. One thing that I wrote down, or a few things I wrote down from Elena that I absolutely loved, is she said, and for you, those of you that don't know, Elena is Grant Cardone's wife. She's amazing. I absolutely loved her segment. But she said, with every decision you make, you're either creating or destroying your empire. She was like, let that sink in. There's no in between. She's like, you sit down and binge watch on Netflix for, 8 hours, like you're destroying your empire. Like that is like that, like you're going backwards with the work you did on your mind before. If you make a decision to, push out of your comfort zone, do something new today. Leah and I were talking a lot about that, just like, doing new things each week, just to get out of our regular routine and like meet different people and things like that. You're creating your empire. Like everything you do, you're either creating or destroying your empire. Another thing she said that I thought was so powerful is she said, you cannot operate in a high stratosphere if you're always having to fix the foundation. This goes with marriage, this goes with business, this goes with every relationship you have in your life. If you are always having to go back and fix the foundation because the foundation is crappy, you cannot ever operate up here, because every time you start trying to get up here, you're going to like start shaking on this shaky foundation and you're going to have to go back to square one. So lay a strong foundation. What this looks like practically for business, excuse me guys, is that you have to make sure that you are pouring into your mind every single day. If you're telling yourself right now, I don't need self-development, I'm sorry, I don't know what to say to you that's nice. Like my first instinct is like, you're an idiot, but I don't want to tell you you're an idiot. Everyone needs self-development, you guys. If I don't do self-development for even like 3 days, I feel it. Like I absolutely feel it, and my results start tanking. Every single person needs self-development. You guys, every single person was talking about how much they read, how much, growth conferences they attend, masterminds that they attend, people that make even more money than they do that they're getting around and learning from. Pam Souter talks all the time about how she starts the day off before she talks to a single person reading. She gets in the hot tub with Dave in the morning, drinks some orange juice, reads, works out. She does all this before she's even started work. You've got to take care of yourself. That's how you lay a firm foundation, is taking care of yourself, not neglecting self-care. If you have things that are bothering you, like maybe you need to lose some weight, maybe you've got, other things in your life that you've been inconsistent with. Maybe you don't need to lose weight, but you've been eating like crap and you're like, oh, I really need to eat better. Whatever it is, like you got to fix the foundation. When you fix the foundation, you feel better, and then you can build upon it and you can keep going higher. But if we neglect the foundation, we're going to wonder why we're always just hanging out right here at Ruby or Emerald, why we can't seem to get higher. It's because we're not fixing it where it actually matters, where we can build upon it. Another thing that Elena said that I thought was so good is she said, you can't influence someone if you're not an example. So I like practically like speaking, putting this in like our business, like if we're not doing what we need to do, if we're not being who we need to be, like kind of going back to that foundation topic, we're not going to inspire someone else to join us and change their life because we're not doing it. So like, how can we inspire someone to do something we're not doing? So you can't influence someone if you're not an example. Write that down. You create something by thinking bigger. Elena talked about, just like all the steps of their journey and like everything that has come. And she said, it always simply put starts just from thinking bigger. Like anything that you're wanting to create, it doesn't happen until you think bigger. Like there's no room for franticness in business. So many of the different speakers kept saying this over and over. They were like, you have to work from a place of peace. You've got to hustle and you got to like, get things done, but you can't be frantic and freaking out and thinking nothing's going to happen for you. Like that's like, you're literally like fighting against yourself when you do that. You're like negating your efforts. Elena told this really cool story. I had heard from Grant in our mentorship program. I had heard his side of the story, but I'd never heard Elena's side of the story. So when Grant really first started becoming well known, it was, and for those of you that don't know a lot about Grant Cardone, he's worth today $750 million. He's almost worth $1 billion. He's absolutely so incredible. He's completely self-made. He's built himself from the ground up. And honestly, a lot of people really didn't know who he was before the recession. So like 2008, when the housing market crashed and all that, he was doing well for himself. Like he was probably making like, I don't know, $250,000 a year, I think is what he said, but no one knew who he was. Like he wasn't this big name. And actually scratch that. Maybe he was making a little bit more than that. Maybe at this point he was like early millionaire. I don't know. But he basically, when that happened, that is when he really started making a name for himself. He wrote his first book, Sell or Be Sold. He wrote it in 3 hours in his home office, self-published it, and he went door to door to door to door and sold this book. It sold over 1 million copies in the first year. And guys, he literally self-published it like himself. He said that bookstores were turning him away because they were closing their doors, and they were like, sorry, you can't set up in here. We don't even have anywhere to put you. Like, we're barely staying afloat. And he just kept going door to door to businesses saying like, hey, if you can give me 15 minutes to speak to your salespeople, I've got a book that you guys can buy that will save you during this time. And the whole point of the book was that if you're not the one selling, then you're going to be the one that's sold to. And like, if you want to survive this economic crash, like you've got to know how to sell. And literally there's like so many testimonials today from big name businesses that you guys know that say Grant Cardone saved their business in 2008, 2009, 2010, because of his sales strategies that he gave their team. But he went out there and did that himself. He didn't have anyone that knew who he was. He didn't have any leg up. He wasn't on social media. He literally went out there and just did the work. But all that to say, Elena told her side of the story, which was so incredible to hear, because I'd never heard it before. And she said that basically she remembers the day like it was yesterday. Grant Cardone was watching the news. There was another big happening on Wall Street. Another, another really well-known business shut their doors, and the world was freaking out. And she said for the first time in her marriage, she saw fear on her husband's face. She said, I've never seen Grant be afraid ever except that day. And she said, when I looked at his face that day, she said, he was truly terrified. She said, and I looked at him and I said, what does this mean? What does this mean for us? What's happening? And she said, he looked at her, and this is totally Grant, if you guys know him. He said, it means we're going to die. And she was like, we are not death. She was like, you promised me when I married you, I was going to have a better life, not a worse life. Like, we're figuring this out right now. And she said, she told him, she said, you go to your office and don't come out till you figured out a solution. And she said he did. He said he got up and he walked to his office and he locked himself in his office. And 3 hours later, he came out with Sell or Be Sold. And she said, he threw the manuscript at her, and he was like, here, read my book. And she's like, you just freaking wrote a book? And he's like, yeah, you told me to find a solution. I did. And guys, that's what it looks like to be solution-minded and to think bigger. Like, you create something by thinking bigger. If you sit and get stuck in the how 24/7, and you're always questioning if it's going to work, you're questioning if you're good enough, yada, 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 you're freaking out when, an unexpected bill comes in, instead of just focusing and thinking bigger and thinking, what can I do? What can I do right now that would be great? I promise you, when you think like that, your creative juices start flowing. And that's when you write a book. That's when things crazy happen. I think of like everything that's ever happened in my life since I've been in the business that has been like a not good thing. And then I think of what's followed with the business and just spoiler alert, it's been amazing things that have happened in the business. But the reason why is because as soon as I feel that negative energy come, I immediately switch it and channel it into being successful, because that's the only choice I have in that moment, is the way I look at it. I can sit and wallow in whatever bad is happening, or I can switch it and I can let that fuel me to be the best person I've ever been. Because the reality is there's things that happen to us in our life we can't change. We can't change other people. We can't change unexpected things. But what we can always be in control of is ourselves. And so if every time something happens to you that's not the greatest, you use that as fuel to go out and do what you can do, which is create, I promise you, you'll always come out on top and you'll always be okay. Another thing that Elena said that I thought was really good is she said, the higher you believe, the higher you achieve. You need someone pushing your belief system so high that it makes you uncomfortable. She said, like, she and so many of the other speakers said something along this lines, but when she was hitting on it, she basically said, like, we would not be here today if it wasn't for people that made us so uncomfortable because they pushed us to do more. She was like, you need to be around someone that's going to push you to believe higher. You don't need to be hanging around people who are doing less than you. Like, you need to be hanging around people that are doing more than you. And so, like, think right now, like, who's your inner circle? Like, are you, like, maybe like you come and you get on the Zooms and you're so pumped up, but then afterwards you go hang out with someone that's doing nothing with their life. You have get-togethers at your house with people that you've known for the past 20 years who are doing nothing with their life. And then you're like, why am I always in this like constant state of like stagnation? It's because you're like, your mind is confused. Like, 1 minute you're around fire, 1 minute you're around like literally ice. And so I just thought that was so good. Like, intentionally putting yourself in circles that are going to push you so much further than you are now. Yeah, I'll pause and let Leah go because otherwise I'll just keep going. But seriously, guys, it was absolutely like we could not write fast enough. Like everything was so good. But Elena, if you guys don't follow her on Instagram. She's absolutely incredible. I love her.
I know I felt like I needed to like just record the whole thing so I could go back and like take notes on and just rewrite everything. But to kind of piggyback onto what you just talked about, Brittany, you know, fueling us. Kevin Hart talked about, you know, we all have these setbacks. We all have these obstacles that we come across. And I think it's safe to say and speak on behalf of pretty much everyone that we've all been told no in this business. We've all heard or seen the negative comments from people, from potentials, from just, you know, just random people that are following us, or on host to post, you know, people commenting on their, you know, on the app that they have up. And, you know, Kevin talked about, you know, letting those obstacles fuel us. And that's our fuel for the fire. For us or for him, you know, it's like, we can either let those setbacks hold us back and we can kind of wallow in it and just get stuck in that. And like Brittany was talking about, like being solution minded, you know, rather than sitting in the problem, we can, you know, turn that around and find that next solution. And one thing Kevin was talking, or Sten was talking about, was like creating our own opportunity. You know, we can, there's some way to get through every single obstacle. And if we use those no's and we use those negative comments to fuel us to keep going and to get through those obstacles, you know, that's how we can make it to the top. That's how all of the, you know, top leaders in the company are making it to the top. They don't let those no's hold us back. And so to kind of touch on that, if you guys haven't seen it, Brittany does a overcoming obstacles YouTube training, or Zoom, sorry, training on her YouTube, which is huge. And I watch that periodically just to kind of refresh, because like, you know, when we do hear no, it can get discouraging. But the last thing that I want to do is let that no even take any sort of space up in my head. So if I hear that no and go, okay, like, how do I overcome it? What do I do? How can I respond? Sometimes I just know how to respond, and sometimes I have to ask somebody for help. And so that one, you know, listening to Kevin talk about, you know, just using those obstacles to fuel the fire, you know, we use those negative comments to just, you know, really just to like show people, you know, people who tell us we can't do this, people who tell us that, you know, this is a scam, or this isn't going to work, or, you know, whatever. I'm sure between all of us, we've heard them all. And so we can either use that and go, okay, well, I'm just not going to do the business, or we can go, okay, yeah, sure, I'll show you. And, you know, that's, for me, I like to use those negative comments just to fuel me and go, all right, well, respectfully give you the middle finger and like show them that, hey, look, I can do this. I will do this. And so there's so much that, you know, we heard from these, you know, millionaires, almost billionaires, that are saying the same things that, you know, we're all talking about. And it just goes to show that, like, you know, I know that we're on the right track. I know that, you know, what I'm doing and who I'm following and who my inner circle is exactly where I'm supposed to be.
I love that so much, Leah. And like, just kind of tacking on to what she was saying about, you know, people making comments or whatever. One thing that they talked about a lot was that like the people around you will either speak to the negative that you can be, or they will speak to the positive to which you can become. Make sure you're in the right environment. Like if you're around people who don't even have any of their own dreams and they've given up on all their dreams, like they're definitely not going to believe in yours. Another thing that I thought was so powerful, and I think this was, I want to say this was Usher that said this. I'm not sure. I think it was Usher, but he said, temptation will meet you every single day if you let it. That's why it's so important that you have a plan. And that's why it's important to allow that plan to change as you go when necessary. And he literally was talking about how no one's immune to temptation, and how like even them, like there's things that come their way that could literally sabotage the path that they're on that could take them out so fast. But they said, like, when you know temptation is always going to come in some form or fashion, whether it comes in complacency, whether it comes in something totally different, like, then you know, okay, like, I've got to have a plan for this. Like, when I start feeling this way, that familiar feeling that I sometimes get, like, I know what I'm going to do to counteract that. And I just thought that was so good, like, just taking that initiative. Someone else said, they said, where did it go? I just wrote it down. Oh, he said, your mind is an amazing tool, but it's a crappy master. And, you know, there's a reason, you guys, the Bible tells us, like, take every thought captive. Like, we're supposed to take control of our mind. We're supposed to take our thoughts captive. And I just thought that was so crazy, like, hearing them say that. Like, your mind's a great tool. Like, your mind has so much to offer, but it is a crappy master. And if you let your mind rule your, like, everything, you're never going to get anywhere, because your mind's always going to come up and not necessarily tell you the right things in the right moments. Another thing that I thought was really good that they were talked about is and obviously this is a little bit different because we're in a team structure, and, you know, none of us, like, work for, you know, one of the others. No one's anyone's boss, but they were talking about the concept of firing fast. They said, fire fast. I think this was Marie Foligo that said this, but she says, toxic people will always infect and take down your whole team. So she was talking about, like, how, like, when you see someone is toxic, like, you got to get it out. Like, you can't entertain that. And that's why, you guys know, any single one of you, if you've ever come to me for advice about something going on, whether it's a negative customer. In fact, I think I just had, like, 3 people this past week that came with, like, a customer that was being hateful. If there's, you know, someone on the team that's being drama, whatever, you guys know my answer is always the same. Like, we don't have time for that. You are the authority when it comes to your, like, everyone that's around you. Like, you teach people how to treat you. When I say you're their authority, I don't mean you're their boss. I mean, they can only talk to you the way that you allow. So if someone's coming in, acting a way that you know is not right, and a way that you don't want to be around, then you stop it right then and there. And I just thought that was so huge, like, hearing them talk about that, that you've got to know that at the end of the day, like, it is your job as the leader, it is your responsibility as the leader to protect the culture. Like, at the end of the day, that is your job. I don't care if you're a Ruby and you have 3 people on your team, if you're an Emerald, if you're a Diamond, if you're all the way up to Ambassador Diamond, like, it's your job to protect your team's culture. And so if you're letting someone run the show on your team, that's on you. And you guys know that I say that unapologetically, because we have to do what's best for our team above everything else. And so I hope that if you're going through anything right now, that you let that be the fuel that you need to, like, really, really raise the bar and set those firm boundaries, because that is when you can truly take your team to a greater level, when you guys are focused and on the right track. Another thing that I thought was really good is they said that everything, and someone put this in the chat, this is really, really good. They said everything that is not forbidden by the laws of nature is achievable given the right knowledge. For some reason, I feel like Amanda Stein's gonna like this. It's a very green quote. Everything that is not forbidden by the laws of nature is achievable given the right knowledge. So what does that mean? That means nothing's impossible for you. That means any of the lies you tell yourself on your worst days, oh, I can't do this, I'll never be Diamond, I'll never, you know, this just isn't working for me. Like, any of those things you tell yourself, it's complete BS. It's a lie. So if you can accept that right now, you're going to be okay, because you're going to realize that, yeah, like Leah said, everything is figure outable. Every single thing that comes your way, there's something that you can do. Floyd Mayweather said, I win or I learn, but I never lose. He said, failure is an event, it's not a characteristic. He said, it's an event and you don't have to choose to receive it. Like, when something happens that looks like failure, like, you win or you learn. That's it. Like, that's your 2 choices. If you didn't win, then you learn something and you go forward stronger than you've ever been before. Another thing that I wrote down, actually, you know what, let me skip real quick, because I wanted to talk a little bit about marketing with you guys before I forget, because I know Leah and I will just keep, like, going on with all these, like, mic drop quotes we heard. And we'll probably, this is, like, I feel like one of the easiest things to forget, because everything else was just like, oh my gosh, so fire. This was fire too, but just a different kind of fire. So they talked a lot about marketing and how, like, our most important job is marketing. They said it doesn't matter if you consider yourself a salesperson, which I know most of you guys probably don't consider yourself a salesperson, but a lot of people in this room were salespeople. They were real estate agents. They were in some type of cold calling. Like, that was their primary field. And what they said is, they said it doesn't matter if you're sales or if you consider yourself more a marketer. Your most important job is marketing, and everyone has to market. They said you cannot generate sales until you get your brand out there. And they just really hit hard that like the way that you need to make sure that your marketing is a way that's going to get people drawn into your page in a way that, you know, kind of the things that we talk about, like a way that is going to build up that following where people are so interested in what you have to say. And one thing that they had us write down is they said your content marketing plan should be to start answering stupid questions in your posts and your videos. They said give those life hacks, give those tips. They said because when you can give people the answers to like seemingly stupid questions, like it's not anything like legendary you just told them, but it's just a little quick tip. Like maybe it's dumb, maybe it's something kind of out of the ordinary, whatever. But like when you can start answering the stuff that people actually want answers to, that's when they're going to keep coming back to you for more, because they're like, oh, I always learn something when I see her stuff. I always get a lot of value. And you guys know we talk so much about adding as much value you can to your posts. That was literally what they told us should be our content marketing plan for 2020, is to make sure that we're answering as much stupid questions for other people in our posts and videos. Another thing that was so good, and I think I shared this in the diamond chat, I can't remember, but they said inoculating is far more important than overcoming. They said your marketing should inoculate your customers' objections, so when the point of sale is happening, you never even have to answer it because it never comes up. And so what does that mean? That means start getting really creative when you're writing your post. Like, what are the objections someone might have? And then you can like creatively, not spammy, like, but very creatively insert it into the post in some way or another. That way, like when they reach out to you, that's not even an objection. You've already overcome it in your marketing. Does that make sense? Like you guys, an example, if you look at my post, you guys will notice I do a lot of this with people's opinions. I really like, I don't have many people that come to me anymore worried about what people think. Maybe for a second, but not usually, because that's something I talk about all the time. Or if they do come to me, this is what they'll say. And some of you who are on here who are newer, you know, because you probably said something like this to me. They'll say, hi, Brittany, like I've watched you for a while. I've always worried about people think, but when I read your posts, I realize I shouldn't worry about what people think. So I think I just want to go for it. Like that's the kind of message I'll get. And so that's just one example, like really inoculating that objection about why other people's opinions don't matter, or inoculating the objection of just general skepticism. You guys will see me do some of that where I just talk about, you know, how I maybe didn't ever think something would come of this, or maybe I hear other people say all the time, like, oh, you don't make money at that, but X, Y, and Z, like, here's what I've done. So those are just a couple examples, but you can do it even in product posts. Like you could talk so much about, you know, why getting on a regimen is so crucial. And you could say something like, you know, it always makes me laugh when I hear people say things like supplements don't work. Saying supplements don't work is like saying that the gym doesn't work. They work if you use them. They amplify your healthy lifestyle. They help give you that edge that you need, that leg up. Like find creative ways where you can really like, you know, insert some of those things in there in your marketing strategy to where people are going to be that much more sold when they reach out to you, to where it's a quick deal. Like you're sealing the deal so fast. I thought that was really good. And then another thing, another couple things that I wrote down before I'm going to pass it over to Leah, and this is kind of like transitioning off marketing, but one thing they said, like for a leader to know. So everyone on here, number one, everyone on here, if you join this business, you join because whether you know it or not, you want to be a leader. Like you want to grow into a leader. And I know many of you on here already have a team. If you have just one person on your team, you guys, you're a leader. If you're, you know, even just talking one person who might join your team, you're a leader. But one thing that they said is they said, you know, as a leader, it's so important to know when someone is stuck, they'll ask dumb questions that don't matter. So if you're getting those dumb questions from someone on your team and it's annoying you, like I know I see some of your faces right now, you're smiling because you're like, oh my gosh, that's been me. Like I've been hearing that. People will do that because they feel stuck. And so they don't know what to do with their time other than to ask you something really dumb, because it makes them feel like, oh, I'm kind of doing something, like I'm asking for help. And so they said, like, when you start getting dumb questions from someone that shouldn't be asking dumb questions, like, you know, they're smarter than that. You're like, why are they asking me this? It's because they're stuck. So you need to really quickly help them get unstuck. Don't even like think too hard about why they're asking you that. Don't even think about the question, like literally go right into like fixing it at the root. And then another thing they said, just to people in the room that maybe were in that boat, they said, it's not a stupid question the first time you ask, but it is when you keep asking it. And so what does that mean? That means when you feel stuck, you might kind of like hover over the same issue for like 6 months because you just can't figure it out. Like you're like, oh man, let me ask one more person for advice about this. Let me see if her answer changed. Like, let me go to this person. Let me go to that person. And they said, like, the first time you ask something, it's not stupid, but if you keep asking it, it is. They said there comes a point where you just got to do what you need to do. You got to like take the information you have. You've got to get out there, dive into your resources, and you got to just go do the dang thing. And so I thought that was so good. And I wanted to mention that because I know right now we're seeing explosive growth in our team. And I want to make sure that everyone, like from a leadership standpoint, like knows how to best help our team. Because at the end of the day, Like that is what we get paid to do, you guys. We get paid to help develop people. And I can't remember who said it, Leah might remember, but someone said on the first day, it was a guy, but he said, maybe it was Magic Johnson. I think it was Magic Johnson. He said, I don't invest in things, I invest in people. And he talked about how the greatest investment you will ever make is in other people. Because if you can pour your heart and soul and pour your best into another person who is going to be like a sponge and they're going to receive it. It may take time. You may have to help them work through a few periods of feeling stuck. There may be time you have to give them a little tough love here and there. But if you will keep pouring into them and giving them your best, if they want to run with you and they're receptive, like that is the best investment you can make, because that person is going to grow up to be a leader in your organization, someone who can be a further extension of you, reaching more people, touching more people. And at the end of the day, I think if we're all honest with each other, like that's what we all want. And so remembering that, remembering the mission, remembering the goal will keep you on track whenever there's things happening that you just can't quite explain, or you just feel like you're, juggling so many balls. So anyways, on that note, before I keep going, I want to pass it over to Leah.
I was just trying to like frantically look through my notes to see who that was. I can't remember who said that, so I'll have to look at my phone because I have like more detailed notes. But I guess I don't know. There's just so much good stuff. I feel like we all just need to watch that whole conference. But let's see. There was a couple other last things that really stood out at me. One of them was that, we can't compare our success to other people's success. And one of the things that, I hear all the time within this business is that I can't compare my beginning to somebody else's middle. I can't compare how long it took somebody else to promote to Ruby or to promote to Diamond or to Double Diamond, and compare it to my promotion to Ruby, my promotion to Diamond, and where I feel like I should be, or have already should feel like I should have been promoted to Double Diamond. I can't I will never get to where I want to be if I continue to compare myself to other people. Whether excuse me. Because everybody's stories, everybody's lives are just so different, and everybody's running at a different pace. Some people do this full time, some people do this as just a side hustle. And so for me, that when they were talking about not comparing your success to other people's success, that one really jumped out at me, because it is easy for me, and when I'm not doing as much self-development as I should be, that's usually when those comparative thoughts start creeping in. And I do start looking at, other people's promotions and things like that and going, oh, well, they promoted in this long, and, I should be here or I should be there. And I will, first of all, I will drive myself crazy thinking like that, and comparing myself to other people's stories. But also we will never get where we want to be if we continue to look at where we should be or where other people are in a different amount of time. So that was one of the other things that amongst everything else that really stood out at me. The other one, hold on a second. Oh, and Brittany touched on something, but I just wanted to kind of jump in. So one of the things that Usher said, when Brittany was talking about investing in people, Usher had talked about, work is the investment. What you get in is what you get out of it. Everything that I do. So like this Grant Cardone conference. No, that's not an It Works conference. No, it's not anything that, is making me money. It's actually costing me money. However, that is a huge investment into my business. It's a huge investment into my self-development. And just, everything just pouring into myself. It's a huge investment to my business, to my success, to who I am as a person and who I want to be as a person. And so that there's just no limit on how much we can pour into ourselves and into our team, and just completely 100% invest in what we are doing, even though it might not just be, purchasing products to produce our own personal results and directly investing into our business, but it's investing into ourselves. And so for me, that one, I really like that one when he said that, just because there's so many different ways to think outside the box and invest in ourselves and what we're doing in our business and stuff. So I don't know. I know I can like go over all my notes and talk about everything that, because there was so much good stuff there. But those are some of the things that really jumped out at me that kind of really hit home with where I'm at with business and personal life. So
I love it. Those are so good. And I feel the same way. I'm like trying to like pick like my favorites, but I like really just want to read them all. So a couple of things that I'll leave you guys with. So one thing that they said kind of what Leah was just talking about, like investing in your future, is they said, you got to put money on your future. Like if you know, like you have to know that it's going to work. Like you've got to know that anything you set out to do, if you set out to do it and you don't quit and you keep getting better, it will work. And they said, so when you know that, it's really easy to put money on your future because you know it's not going to return to you void. Like you know it's going to yield so much to you for years to come. And I just thought that was so powerful. Another thing that I wanted to kind of go over that I thought was really good, and it was from John Travolta. So John Travolta was like so interesting, like fascinating watching him up there. He was like so calm. I know Leah will like agree with me. Like the rest of them were like a lot louder personalities, and he was just like so quiet and calm and matter of fact. But he said that how assumption is a killer. And he said, not assuming is the greatest protection in the world. If you don't assume, you'll never suffer the loss. And he talked about how like some of the greatest things that like we like put ourselves through as far as hurt goes, like comes from assuming. Like we assume something, and it can go both ways. Like you guys know in the business, we talk all the time about don't assume just because someone didn't answer your message that they're not interested. Their kid could have started throwing up right after you sent the message. They could have had a phone call come in. Like there could have been a million things that happened right after they opened your message. So them not answering, we shouldn't assume that it means anything but they just didn't answer right then. That's why we follow up. That's why we check back in. I can't tell you how many times like all of us check back in. And I'm saying this mostly for new people or for people who like don't believe this yet. Like I can't tell you how many times we check back in and someone's like, oh my gosh, thank you for checking back in. I completely forgot to message you back. But that was one thing John Travolta kept saying is like, you've got to know that like not assuming will be your greatest protection in the world. Like don't assume anything. Another thing that he said that I thought was really good, and this is kind of along the lines of assuming, is he said, make deals happen, don't ruin deals. Like when you assume, you ruin deals. He said, when you don't, this was really good, you guys, this is kind of off topic, but I wanted to share this. He said, when you don't have money, you will suffer the most. That is the only crime people have in the world. And what he meant by that was he said, when you don't have money and you choose to do nothing about it, you will inevitably suffer more than anyone else because you will have harder times than anyone else has. When a hard time happens, you don't have the resources, the financial resources to take care of it. He says, and that is like a self-imposed crime. Like all of us, we live in the greatest, every single person, you guys go so crazy. All the people that like literally came from nothing, got up there, like Magic Johnson, Usher, Kevin Hart, like they all kept getting up there saying the same thing. They were like, we live in the greatest country in the world. They were like, it like blows our mind that people don't see that people don't understand, like, wow, we have so much opportunity here in America. And they'll like sit and just like settle for a mediocre life because they really truly don't think they can have more. And so I just thought that was so powerful from John Travolta. When you don't have money, you will suffer the most. And that'll be your only crime that you have, is that you chose to sit there and not do anything about it your whole life. Another thing that I thought was really, really good that he talked about the difference of being important versus valuable. And he said, every single human being is important. He said, every single one of us, we're all equally important. He said, it's totally fine to believe you're the most important person in the world, as long as you believe everyone else is the most important person in the world too. He said, everyone's equally important. He said, but not everyone is equally valuable. He said, you have to know that certain people are more valuable to what you need at that season in your life. Certain people are more valuable to your business. Certain people are more valuable relationally speaking. Certain people are going to be more valuable for your marriage. Like there's going to be certain influences that are inevitably going to like call you higher in different areas of your life. So there are people that are more valuable, but we're all equally important. And he said, so often we get so stuck on this, like, oh, we're all the same, like you're not any better than me, and like we like miss the mark. He says everyone's equally important, but you have to open up your eyes and realize that to you and for you, and like for whatever season, whatever you're going through, whatever help you need, you know, at that moment, like there will be people that are more valuable. And I just thought that was really good and really, really well explained. Okay, kind of just leaving you guys with like my last like favorite things. One was from Floyd Mayweather. He was talking about how, you know, he literally came from nothing. He talked about how his dad died when he was little, and how, you know, he would go into the boxing ring as a little kid, and he would just go in there and work. And he said he literally worked so hard as a child and like believed that there was like this huge future out there for him, because he never, like, he wanted to come back and take care of all the people that could barely take care of him. And I just thought that was so powerful. And he said, like, if you're getting hung up on that, like, oh, you don't need money, he was like, I'm sorry, but you're living in a fairy tale world. He said, money does matter. You need money to be alive. You can't eat without money. And he said, I am all about, and what I believe in is creating generational wealth. He said, so I am all about money because I know what it was like to have none, to literally have none and not know where my next meal will come from. And he said, he like literally has bought his siblings, his mom, like he's bought them all houses today. Like he said, his sister lives in $1 million home that he bought for her. And it's just crazy because he was the youngest child that no one really thought could do anything. But he just, like, you know, just hearing him just really talk about like what drove him in those early days to really like frame his mind, like to be ready to receive success after he'd worked for it. It was just so, so powerful. Another thing that he said is, he said, when you read a book, there's a conclusion. He said, when your life ends, there should be a conclusion. He said, what are you writing right now? He said, if your life were to end in 10 years, what would the conclusion be? Like when you read a book, like it ends a certain way. Like there was a conclusion to that story. He said, like when you die, there should be a very obvious conclusion that people are left with. And he said, if there's not, and you're not writing anything right now, like you've got to fix that right now. Another thing that he said, and this is kind of like the last thing that I wanted to leave you guys with, or second to last thing. He said, if you don't know your fullest potential and you don't know how to love yourself, you'll never, ever be able to give others the best of you. And you'll never be able to give others a real kind of love. And he said, so ask yourself right now, if you feel like you're always letting people down, if you feel like you don't give people that love they deserve from you, it's because you don't actually love yourself and because you don't actually truly know your full potential. And if you can sit down right now and like figure that out and figure out like, do I really not believe some things inside of me, and like break that apart, like dismantle that lie and accept that there is like so much potential that God put inside of you. He wouldn't have put you on this earth if he didn't have a plan for your life. And start realizing that and believing that right now, and deciding that you're going to love yourself because you know that God loves you and he put you here for a purpose. That is when you'll be able to go forward your best version of yourself and give that to others. And the last thing I want to leave you guys with, and I can't remember who said it, but it was on the last day. So it was one of the last people, but they said, if you want to attract great people, be successful. They said, good people are attracted to success. You've got to become the person that other people just can't wait to be around. And the beautiful thing about this, you guys, and this is what I'll wrap up with, is that every single one of us has that capability. Like every single one of us can choose right now to be that magnetic person that people can't get enough of. Every single one of us can decide right now, I'm going to be that person that gives so much value, people want to be in the same room as me. I'm going to be that person that is never a drain. I am only adding. Like when people are around me, they never feel like I'm taking. They feel like I'm always adding to them. Like I always give more than I take. Become the person that you know that you love to be around, and you'll find that people start coming to you. If you build it, they will come, you guys. And that ultimately comes back to what's inside of you. If you will set yourself on fire, people will come from the ends of the earth to watch you burn. You have to decide right now, I will become the person that I was meant to be. I will become the qualities that I aspire to be like. I will become the things that I look up to the most in other people. And if you do that, you will find that great people are attracted to you, and great people, like they want to be around you more and more because they're inspired by you. So I'll wrap up with that and end with that. We love you guys so, so much. I know we went a little bit over, but it was just so, so good. I know Leah feels the same way. We could have talked for like another hour. Like it was 3 days of like jam-packed, like absolute so much fire. If you guys have not ever been to a growth conference, like outside of conference, I challenge you to get to one this year. There's a lot of other conferences throughout the year by different people. Rachel Hollis has Rise Business in December. I'm going to that. I know Tony Robbins has a couple. There's so many good conferences that are going to be throughout the year from different, well-known people. Get to one. It'll change your life. Like Leah said, it's an investment in your future. I promise you that $300 or whatever you spend to get a ticket, like that's not going to return back to you void. If you take that and you use it, it will propel you forward, and you're going to see your income go up even more. When I went to, what conference did I go to? I know Deborah and I went to Rise Business in this past November. I think it was the August before was when I went to GLS. It was August 2018. I went to the Global Leadership Summit, and that November we went presidential 2 months later. And guys, the jump we did from August to November was crazy. August was the month that I got Triple Diamond back. I had lost Triple Diamond over the summer, got Triple Diamond back in August, went presidential, which was like basically doubling our team's volume in November, and then 5 months later went ambassador. So these conferences will literally like push you forward. They will get you out of your comfort zone. They'll help you propel forward even faster. So I challenge you to get to one and come back and share what you learned with everybody. We love you guys. I hope you guys have a great night. We will talk to you guys later. Bye, guys.